Welcome to the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast from Never Too Late Cafe. I'm your host, Laura Womack. Each week, we sit down for a chat with someone just like you, someone who had an idea, a passion, a dream, or sometimes just a thought, and planted that seed, watched it grow into something they wanted to share with the world. If you have an idea for a topic or someone that would be a guest for the Bloom Where You're Planted podcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, where you can join our Never Too Late Cafe Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. Welcome back to part 2 of our time with Michael Roush. So, do you have earlier in your life influences?
Oh my goodness. And I grew up both my mom and dad's sides of the family were really, I would say, very musical. Especially my dad's or especially my mom's side of the family. There was always a guitar around the house. My mom's side of the family, the Bradleys in Brown County, around Mount Orab, Ohio. When my grandfather, and he and his siblings were growing up, there was always some little subgroup of the siblings that had a combo that played places in the area. Every family reunion, every Bradley family reunion I went to was this ad hoc country bluegrass jam where people would bring, they had the white Corningware dish with the blue flowers on the side, and and a musical instrument. That was what you brought to the reunion.
Look, and an instrument.
Yeah, and
casserole dish, I should say.
Yeah, so there was always just this fabulous music going on at these things, but that's part of why I always thought, okay, the guitar is laying around, so I'm just gonna naturally be able to pick that up anytime and be good at it. No, because every time I watched these people, anytime I saw them play, they were great, and I would pick up a guitar and I would try to do something on, and it sounded terrible. And so I thought, well, I just can't do this, and I would put it away. And I wouldn't go back to it because it didn't sound like what I was hearing everybody else able to do. What I never got to hear was all the struggle that it took to get to that point. And I was used to thinking, if you're naturally really good at something, that's what you do. If you're naturally not really good at something, you don't do that.
Oh.
And I lost, or I just never didn't really develop early on that sense of, if you like something, if you enjoy doing something, even if you're not very good at it, there's still a reason to do it.
Those are great words, because that's the passion side of something. And there's a lot of well, you can stick with something until you get better, or just do it because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So both of your families, or families on both sides, were musically inclined. And when did you first recall that you wanted to play an instrument?
I tried in elementary school. I tried to play trombone. I had another member of my family who played trombone and was very, very good at it. So again, I thought it was one of those things that, hey, that looks great. That sounds great. I bet I can do that. And so I did that for a couple of years and just got to the point where I was not enjoying it. So I did that for a couple of years, put it away, didn't really get back with it. And after that, all the way, 7th grade through 12th grade, going into college, I could sing a little bit. I could read music, and so I was able to, sing some harmony parts, and do some of that sort of stuff. But it was never anything that was something that I put myself into. I do have a recording. I mentioned a lot about my my mom's side of the family, my mom has a twin brother who was actually in a band in high school with my father. So before there was me, these two guys who ended up being brothers-in-law um, were had a band in high school, and I have a digital copy of the recording of the front and back side of a 45 that they made. Went to a studio in Cincinnati and recorded themselves doing a couple of songs that they wrote, and that being able to go back and listen to that, that's like, oh my gosh, these two guys with some of their friends, there were five of them total, um, who went put in all that work to write music, to practice, to play, to practice, to play over and over and over again, and finally get to that point of, okay, we're going to record this, so that I can now have that and play it for my kids, and eventually, play it for my my grandson and any other future grandkids who come along, and say, hey, listen, this is what my uncle and my father did. For them to have, for them to be able to have that kind of a connection with what was going on was, I'm so grateful that they stepped out enough to make that kind of a leap, to make a recording, and that it survived long enough to make it to me.
And because the technology would have been different, so would that have been on a cassette?
It was on a 45 RPM record, and so for Christmas one year, somebody got one of those USB turntables and took the old 45 that they still had and digitized it, turned it into an MP3 file, and so now I have the MP3 file of both sides of that 45 that was made by the Mysteries.
Wow, that is, technology is such that they can do the conversions. For a long time, things just kind of, some media didn't survive. Yeah. They deteriorated, and the way they can take things now, and if it's in good shape, so it's great. There's a place in Columbus I've taken things to, and took a VHS video and had it put on a CD, well, DVD, so I could play it at least on a DVD player, and then I can turn it into whatever.
Right. So, we've seen that. Yeah, we've seen that lately with the those demos that John Lennon had that nobody had heard for however many years, and they finally kind of came out, and they re-engineered them and did a whole bunch of audio cleanup and kind of fixed them up and set them up, and suddenly, 50 years later, the Beatles have a #1 record. Oh, because of this, the technology that they were able to take. But it's amazing what the difference in some of that is, because back then, in the 60s, when the Mysteries, made this out, they had to get up in the morning and load everything up in whatever, a van or whatever it was that they were, drive to Cincinnati, get to the studio, spend all day in the studio making their recordings. Somebody had to engineer all of that. Who knows how long it was? Weeks, months later, a 45 was done, and so they would print off a bunch of those, and who knows how long that took to press all those 45s. And so then they had a whole bunch of them in a box, and they could go around and they could sell them at their gigs, or they could mail them to people or anything like that. And so this entire process, I'm sure, took, at the inside, it would take like a year to get your song to a few hundred people. Today, I can use my phone. I can record a song here where I'm sitting. I can put it on YouTube, and it's available to millions and millions and millions of people in minutes.
Mm.
Um,
You're
so
right.
we've taken out some of the barriers to getting to getting work out there, but we it's still making the process easier still doesn't help us overcome that. The biggest barrier to doing that is our own minds and our own hearts saying, I've got something worth sharing.
Mm. Right. And they have a story about, driving to Cincinnati, loading up, could have been the hottest day of the year, or they ran out of gas, or some story goes behind all that stuff too. So I'm big into story, as you can tell. So, the process. So, but you have a process of, your whole beginning of being interested in plucking it out and admitting that you didn't do so well at first, but you were very smart to have someone with you so they could, play along, drown you out if they needed to. Uh, so, this podcast is called Bloom Where You're Planted. Mm-hmm. And I ask everybody what that means to them. So what does it mean to Michael?
Yeah, it when I think about that idea, and I don't make a living at music. I work in education. I support teachers and students using technology, K-12, as my day job. Mm-hmm. And so I'll say that experience in working with students and working with teachers has colored this idea as well. That it took, for all of us, it took a very unique and specific set of circumstances to make you who you are today. Mm. Now, some of that is what has happened to you, and some of that is the choices you've made and reactions that you've had. And I really believe that ratio is probably different for everyone. But I hear people sometimes use that bloom where you're planted line to excuse not being everything that maybe they think they could be, because I was planted in a bad spot, so this is as much as I can bloom. Mm-hmm. But fact is, I mean, those unique circumstances are what has made you who you are. So wherever you are, you have a path forward. It's likely it's not on your own, and it won't be easy, and it won't be overnight. But for me, bloom where you're planted means the world needs what you can be. And there's something that only you can offer to this. And so the world is missing out on something if you sell yourself short. The world needs what you can be, so you should keep pointing that direction. And like Joe Walsh said, what you do it for people, do it for someone else. Share it with somebody you trust until you can share it with everyone. There's a community out there that will appreciate what you have, what you're bringing. And when you find them, the will to do more will kick in, and practice makes permanent. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. The more you do it that way, the more you'll be able to do it that way. And so the more you can polish what you're doing and keep doing it more and more, the more it will come out at the times when it's needed most.
Those are great words. So what words of wisdom would you offer to someone that wants to do what you're doing or have done?
Yeah, I think if I'm wrapping up everything that because I mentioned a few books. I'm a bit of a reader. I read voraciously for small packages of time. It's like I will read several books and then I'll go for a while and not pick one up. But some of those books that I've mentioned are really good for me. Podcasts are a great way to pull in a bunch of information. So as you're pulling all of that kind of information in, I think my if I'm kind of synthesizing all of that, a good piece of wisdom for me to put into all that is um, do enough. And I got this piece of advice years ago from a book that I had read. Do enough to make one good mistake every day, and a good mistake is one that doesn't really do any damage, but that you can learn from. If you're not making any mistakes, you're not learning anything new.
A good mistake every day.
Do enough to make one good mistake every day.
That requires some thought. It does. Interesting. So what is next for you?
Um, I I want to I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I leave something behind that helps other people decide to give it a shot, whatever it is for them. That idea of finding something you enjoy, finding something that helps you express creativity, finding something that helps you work through that, and sharing it with someone. I just like those recordings came to me, and I had I've got a recording of my dad and my uncle and their friends playing together. I inherited a cassette tape of my uncle Dino Bradley, who has he was a studio musician in Nashville, toured with Hank Williams Jr., David Allan Coe. He has like 5 gold albums, 2 platinum, that kind of stuff for his work with Hank Jr. But my favorite recording of his is a tape that I have of him and my grandfather, his dad, playing guitar and singing together. It's the only recording I have of my grandfather, who I grew up hearing play music all the time. And so what's next for me is I want to make sure that I leave something behind, not that it's going to be great, but that somebody else can listen to it and decide that, hey, you know what, I can do what I do for someone else, and put it out there as me.
Well, to start off, I should have said that we met at a Wood Songs artist gathering last year.
Yeah.
In 23. And
I scared you completely out of the blue because I started asking a whole bunch of questions about coming to this thing, and you were very gracious about telling me what was going on.
I was just like, how did you hear about it? The beauty of websites where things are posted. Well, I just was like, oh my gosh, he has a song farmers group. And you haven't been to the annual yet, the annual Song Farmers, but you plan on doing that this year?
I'm not. I'm still trying to figure out whether I can go to the whole weekend, but I've got it pretty well set now. I can make it to the the Sunday artist gathering.
Okay, at the Song Farmers, you mean?
At the cabin, yeah.
Okay. I went last year, and I have a whole story behind that. So ask me sometime. This is you, not me. Oh yeah, it was funny. And while you're talking about instruments, I was telling you earlier that I was in my garage clearing out some old paperwork, and I found a Walkman. It's got the batteries all corroded inside, but anyway, it's just talking about old, they're different generations of things that we use. So then also this year, I'm going to do a little plug, if you don't mind, for the Wood Songs Artist Gathering in the Southern Ohio, well, I should say Portsmouth, greater Portsmouth, Ohio area. And we had people come, several people drove 7 hours to come. And it was amazing. It was a wonderful day. And you graciously recorded it. And I appreciate that, because my camera, when someone took pictures, they didn't turn out very good. It was not focused well. But anyway, so it's going to be, as a little plug here, the last Sunday in September of 2024. It's actually open for the whole weekend if anyone wants to come and stay at Sandy Springs Campground. Going to have some kids activities, and it's also their Oktoberfest that weekend. So if anyone comes to stay and then stays obviously for Sunday to do original art, whether it's music, as in songwriting, poetry, writing, and visual art. So, and it's just a great way to be supportive of other people in the arts. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I had a blast. I had a wonderful time. There were a couple people there that I already had heard before. Frank Grasso and Steve Free. I already knew their work. Had no idea they were going to be there, but I knew their work. And so it was really cool to go see them. I think if I had known that they were going to be there, that would have scared me about going, because I had seen them, and I knew how good they were. But once I was there, I was like, okay, I'm here. I might as well go for it and do this thing. And it was fantastic. It didn't matter that I hadn't been doing this as long as them, or
you'd have a hard time doing it as long as Steve Free's been doing
that's for sure.
Because he's been doing it longer than you've probably been.
Yeah.
He'll tell you that. But it was just very supportive of everybody, no matter what they did. And, for visual artists, it's hard to get a whole painting or picture done in the 2 hours that you have to create. So, but it's where you're at the time. So, and it's a wonderful location. And the host, the Wanglers, Julie, has been my co-host for, this will be our 3rd year. So this is a little pitch to have people come and do their art and be supportive of other people. It's non-competitive, all original art that day. And I'm glad that you reached out to the webpage and found out about it. So, there's other Wood Songs gatherings and all over the place. They're from Minnesota but anyone that wants to go to the Song Farmers at Renfro Valley, is that how you say?
Yeah.
In Kentucky at the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame. That's a great event. That's a national gathering, and you'll love it, Michael.
I am really looking forward to it.
I mean, there's different tents with people, jamming like you're talking about. You'll just fit right in. So I want to thank you so much for being a guest. It's been a blast, and thank you for letting me sort of do a pitch while we're on here. But that's how we met, was Wood Songs. So and I look forward to hearing more about what you do in the future, because I'm sure there's you're on the move. I can feel it. You've got a great personality to be a presenter, and I would never have known you'd only been doing it a short amount of time as far as your original music and playing out and such like that. So just keep that in mind.
It surprised me too.
Well, a supportive environment goes a long way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's people's fear about it, is that nobody will value what they do. and that safe environment is exactly what it takes to not lie to you about what you do, but to take what you've done and help you do it to the best of your ability.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for doing this podcast, Laura. I really enjoy the episodes that you put together.
So as our time comes to a close, remember to keep creating, keep sharing, and keep supporting each other. And remember to bloom where you're planted. Bye for now.